So yeah, this bipolar thing, one of the symptoms of when you're manic is that you'll spend money recklessly. So I've done that. One time I impulsively donated $1,000 to former Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard's presidential campaign. Yeah, I know, I get it. She's a controversial figure. But I donated $1,000 to her campaign because at the time, she was the most anti-regime change war candidate, and because we were supposed to be together. At least that's what I kind of thought at the time. And guess what happens if you donate $1,000 to Tulsi Gabbard's presidential campaign? You get a phone call from her mother. Carol Gabbard called me for real, and because at the time I was such an exuberant Tulsi supporter with such a deep dive knowledge of her political history and presidential campaign, me and Carol talked on the phone for like 40 minutes. For real. I was like, Carol, I can't believe the way the mainstream media is treating Tulsi. She's a veteran, for God's sakes. This is ridiculous. She went down to Syria on a fact-finding mission and saw that the CIA, our government, was arming all sorts of terrorist groups like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Al-Nusra. She then came back and introduced into Congress the Stop Arming Terrorists Act that didn't even get out of committee. Are you kidding me? And now CNN is trying to paint her as being an Assad apologist and a Putin puppet? Not cool. And then Carol was like, I know, it's crazy. My manic ramblings resonated with her 100%. Because here's what you guys need to understand. Is right around the time that I made this donation, it was right when the mainstream media was making all of these unsubstantiated claims that the Russian propaganda machine was aligning itself behind Tulsi Gabbard. And you guys may not know this, but I worked on this radical political comedy news show, Redacted Tonight, for close to 5 years. Yeah, and I'm super proud of all the work that I did on that show. Also, it was predominantly funded by the Russian government. Whatever. So when I heard that they were saying the mainstream media, that the Russian propaganda machine was aligning itself behind Tulsi, I was like, wait a minute, that's bullshit. I work for the Russian propaganda machine, and that's not what's happening, so I'll be goddamned if I'm going to let this Russiagate nothing burger narrative undermine Tulsi Gabbard's presidential campaign, right? And for the record, I do not believe the show I was on, Redacted Tonight, was part of the Russian propaganda machine. I think the show brilliantly used the platform it was given to amplify the voices of independent journalists and frontline activists, all while really telling the truth about what's actually going on in America, all amongst a very broken, whitewashed corporate media landscape. Also, those rubles always came in on time, baby. Yeah. Thank you, Big Daddy Vladdy. Thank you, Big Daddy Vladimir Putin. All right, he's a monster. Okay, he's a monster. So is the U.S. and NATO. All right. I don't want to talk about it. There's a lot of neo-Nazis in the Ukraine. It's a complicated situation. I don't want to talk about it. So yeah, I really thought they were going to use this red baiting of Tulsi as a cudgel to undermine her presidential campaign. And if you were paying attention at the time, that's actually what they did. So I came up with a plan. I had a manic plan to save her. I decided that I was going to create a Russiagate breadcrumb trail for some hack corporate journalist to scurry down the rabbit hole of. But then when they got to the bottom of it, they weren't going to find the Russian propaganda machine aligning itself with Tulsi. Instead, they were going to find me. And they were going to feel ridiculous about themselves. So here's what I did. I realized when you made the donation, you could put any name that you wanted in the name section. So I put Goofy Grapes. Because as you all know, Goofy Grapes is the alias I created 13 years ago. When I needed to take over temporary control of the internet in order to keep the neocons from erasing evidence of their war crimes from YouTube. You all know this. Because otherwise they were going to assassinate me. And clearly it worked because I'm still here. All right. Thank you. So for name, I put Goofy Grapes. For occupation, I put comedian. And for employer, I put redacted tonight. And I just let that sort of sit there and kind of percolate, right? And there's an added bonus. The fact that I put Goofy Grapes as my name was kind of cool because when Tulsi's mother, Carol, called me, she did have to say, hello, is this the Goofy Grapes? Who donated $1,000 to my daughter's presidential campaign. Also, I don't think I've really expressed to you guys just how endeared me and Carol were to each other. Because that first phone call was not our only phone call. We talked on the phone at least 4 more times after that. For real. And yeah, sure, I initiated all of those phone calls. But she answered every time, and our rapport was undeniable. Anyway, cut to months and months later, I'm in and out of jail. I'm in and out of the hospital. I don't want to talk about it. I get a call from my buddy Lee, and he's like, hey man, do you want to hear how you became part of a national news story for a couple days? And I'm like, oh fuck, what happened? And it turns out, you guys, my plan worked. My manic plan came to fruition. Are you guys familiar with the online publication, The Daily Beast? Yeah, this is going to take me a minute to pull up. Here we go. So The Daily Beast is an online publication with a pretty substantial following. This is from May 17th, 2019. Headline: Tulsi Gabbard's campaign is being boosted by Putin apologists. Second paragraph: donors to her campaign in the first quarter of the year included Stephen F. Cohen, a Russian studies professor at New York University and prominent Kremlin sympathizer, Sharon Tennyson, a vocal Putin supporter who nonetheless found herself detained by Russian authorities in 2016, and an employee of the Kremlin-backed broadcaster RT, who appears to have donated under the alias Goofy Grapes. Yeah! It worked, you guys! It fucking worked! My manic plan worked. Just instead of having the intended consequence of protecting Tulsi, it had the unintended consequence of getting me fired from my job. Whatever.